Hey world, this is Keith of Nerdy Keith, and you're very welcome to the second episode of Spire. Spire is where I talk about some of the ways, and many of the ways, in which Star Trek is inspiring to myself, to society, and to the world. So today I want to talk about the follow-up to Star Trek Enterprise, and that is Star Trek Discovery, and why I think that Star Trek Discovery is important. And for the benefit of anyone who has not yet seen Star Trek Discovery, there will be spoilers in this episode. I repeat, if you have not yet seen Star Trek Discovery, this is your red alert warning that there will be spoilers ahead. Firstly, what we have to realize is that Star Trek Discovery, and you can also include Star Trek Picard in this regard, that as a Star Trek show, it is very different in terms of how it looks and how their stories are constructed. So the story arcs for Discovery are serialized. Many people have mixed opinions on this. Me personally, I think it's an improvement, and it's not exactly a big game changer. If we're being completely honest, we've had many previous series who've had an omnibus of story arcs within a season. The best example of this outside of Star Trek Discovery is on Deep Space Nine. Within their 7th season, they had a 7-part story arc involving the Dominion War. A very similar story arc was featured in Enterprise for pretty much their entire 3rd season, and that story was surrounded around the Xindi and the Delphic Expanse region. There are, of course, countless other examples of continuing stories, from 2-part episodes to occurrences involving the Borg and Species 8472 and so on and so forth throughout the entire Star Trek universe. But I think you get the point. Serialized stories have actually been done before, so really all Discovery is doing here is simply taking that concept and expanding upon it and taking it to the next level of basically having serialized stories for an entire season. The only time I've seen them break away from this is in their 2nd episode involving Harry Mudd, in an episode very humorously entitled Magic to Make the Sanest Man Go Mad, which is really the only time we really break away from the main plot of Discovery's 1st season. But even this episode is still connected to Discovery's first encounter with Mudd in an episode entitled Choose Your Pain. So even though season 1 of Discovery has a little bit of a separation of story, we still have everything very neatly all tied together. This also includes when the Starship Discovery travels to the legendary Mirror Universe, only to realize that Primetime Lorca has been switched with Terran Lorca, or as I like to call him, Evil Captain Lorca. It becomes clear that the events in the Mirror Universe are still tied to the events prior to that and the ones that follow it in the 1st season. We also have to take into account Lorca's behavior right from the start of the season in terms of how far he is willing to go in order to win the war against the Klingons. What really amazes me about Discovery is just how carefully planned out each episode is, especially in season 1. Each and every episode, each and every moment is like a piece to a puzzle, and as you go forward with each episode, you start to discover more pieces to that puzzle. But not just the series itself, but how it connects itself to the original series, and it connects itself in quite a few different ways. The first notable connection to TOS is the actual theme music itself. The last couple of seconds of the Discovery opening theme music contains a sample of the TOS theme music, which is something that the Star Trek Kelvin movies have also done. The next obvious link is with our main character, Michael Burnham, who is naturally the foster sister of Spock. Now, I know this has received a lot of negative feedback online from many different people, but I do appreciate it and I do understand the reason behind it. Unlike what many naysayers on the web have been saying, that this was a poorly thought out, rehashed form of fan fiction, I don't believe that's the case. This character, Michael Burnham, is Discovery's most important link to the original series. By creating a link, or rather relationship, between a main character on the original series to a main character on Star Trek Discovery, this has very uniquely created a solid connection between the two series. This becomes even more apparent when we get to season 2 and we finally get to see Spock and Michael interact for the first time as adults. There have been at least 2 mentions of Captain Archer and the USS Enterprise NX-01, Once was from Commander Saru, and the second reference was from Admiral Cornwall. So while it is very important to have that link from the original series to Discovery, it is also very important to have the link between Star Trek Enterprise and Discovery. After all, this is a sequel and a prequel at the same time. It is the sequel to Star Trek Enterprise. In fact, if you pay close attention to the Starfleet uniforms in Star Trek Enterprise and compare them to the Starfleet uniforms in Star Trek Discovery, they have a lot of similarities. It's almost as if the uniforms in Star Trek Discovery is somewhat of an updated version of the very basic, almost naval uniforms that we got to see in Star Trek Enterprise. And that brings me to the main point to why Star Trek Discovery is still so very important. Star Trek Enterprise was cancelled after only 4 seasons, which is such a shame because the show had such potential to grow and expand. If it had been given the opportunity, it really could have explored a pre-Kirk Starfleet era in a very interesting way, but sadly it was cancelled after 4 seasons. Enterprise never truly got the opportunity to link itself to TOS as it could have. So in a way, Discovery is very much carrying on the torch, as it were. So I'm really quite amazed that Star Trek Discovery has not only managed to connect itself to the original series, it's also managed with many references to connect itself to Star Trek Enterprise, which in my opinion is something that ought to be admired.